anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg will end up, and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Good morning. It is the 11th day of December 2018, and there's only about, less than 2 shopping weeks left before Christmas. Check us out online if you're not already there, heartofamerica.net, heartofamerica.net. Still time to get a copy of The Unknown America at theunknownamerica.com. Several people took us up on our offer yesterday. You want it in time for Christmas. That had better happen in the next couple of days, or it's going to be a new year next year. So go check that out as well. I've got a lot to talk about today. I also do want to remind you, as we are continuing to build the Heart of America broadcasting network here, that this is the regular Michael Hart Show. Your calls are welcome at 929-477-3761. On Wednesdays, we do our program, which is Unknown America, where we talk to you about some of the most interesting things in American history. Tomorrow's going to be all about some interesting things from the unknown Black history of America, and I do mean African American, as some interesting things occurred on that particular date. That would be the 12th of December throughout history. So we'll get into that a little bit and really be prepared to be amazed at some of the things you did not know about this country. And then on Friday, our situational security program. We're going to be joined by a guy by the name of Felix Natter. He is a consultant on workplace crime and violence, and his company teaches people in the workplace how to keep from getting, how can we put this, how about whacked on the job? So he'll be here to talk to us a bit about that in just a bit. Let's take a real quick look, a traipse scene, if you will, through history, because it was all the way back on this date in around, about 1816, that Indiana becomes the 19th state. Then you have to go really pretty much all the way up to about, I don't want to get to the Catholic encyclopedia stuff. That's kind of boring. 1934, Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, takes his very last drink and enters treatment into an organization that he himself, created. Also, although this is not necessarily U.S. history, where I prefer to stay, but it was on this date in 1936, Edward VIII's abdication as King of the United Kingdom and the British dominions beyond the seas, and he did it all for love. That's pretty much everything besides 1946, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, also known as UNICEF, is established. There's so many other things that have gone on this date, but those are the ones that are, the most pressing in terms of their, changes to the fabric of the American experience. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to revisit, and I never thought that I would revisit, but we are going to revisit the Baby It's Cold Outside story, and an interesting rendition of that that's been put out. We'll play that for you here in just a little bit. Also, the Academy Awards, they are considering going without a host in the future. And you know something? I pretty much said that was exactly what was going to happen with the state of the political environment in this country today. And I said it probably 4 years ago, that every single time there was an Academy Award and it went all political, that there would come a point in time, because for the last 4 or 5 years, the numbers have absolutely plummeted. And they plummeted because people don't want basically 3.5, 4 hours of Trump bashing, or for that matter, politics. I mean, it began before Trump. And so now it seems that the Motion Picture Association of America has decided that it might be best going without a host, with following Kevin Hart's announcement that he was bowing out as host of the 2019 Academy Awards. That came out on Monday, yesterday. Got an interesting posting from Kevin Hart that we're going to actually play the audio on that as well, where he makes some good points. But at the end of the day, these people in Hollywood, throughout the United States, on Saturday Night Live, on these rock and roll stages, need to learn that people, for the most part, are sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing your darn political views. And you can just keep that to yourself. So we've got that story we've got percolating off to the side. We've also got an interesting insight on what is going on behind the scenes at Facebook. Russia is remaining quiet after sending 2 nuclear-capable bombers to Venezuela. We touched on this briefly yesterday. Bill and Hillary Clinton selling discounted tickets on Groupon. It looks like that tour is going to be wrapped up. Also, the 10 Commandments battle is back in the news. That's right. This time in the state of Texas. Is civility, morality, Christianity, is it making a comeback? Well, some folks are certainly putting the pressure on. And also Trump to meet with Democrats on the border wall and possible partial shutdown. But first, without any further ado, they're the Holderness family. And they've been creating parody songs for a while. And they took a new approach to the Christmas classic, Baby It's Cold Outside. I want to stop for just a moment and notice that we have got 2 stories here. Wait a second. Trump's offensive. Let's put that over here in the offensive file. Academy Awards, Kevin Hart is being called out for being offensive. We've got State Representative Dan Flynn of Texas introducing a brand new bill. Got a copy of the bill. It's a bill to be enacted as an act relating to the posting of the 10 Commandments. Well, that's offensive. We've got people over here that are saying Bill and Hillary need to put their speaking or listening tour. I don't know how the hell you can call a speaking tour a listening tour, but nonetheless they have. And so there's a lot of folks that are just deciding it's just not really worth it because much of there is offensive. So since maybe that's a brand new podcast. Maybe we need to be thinking about that in the future. What offends you today? Or maybe if there's not anything that offends you, maybe we can create just an offensive podcast where we just come on the air and pick out 3 or 4 select groups of people and go out of our way just to piss them off every day. What do you think about that? I'm liking that idea because almost every story that I've got here is a demonstration of offensiveness, of people that are fed up and they are just sick and tired of being oppressed. And, it's inherent in the system. Help, I'm being oppressed. And that's just the way people are. So much so that, even Dina Martin has to weigh in on Baby It's Cold Outside. I didn't even know there was a Dina Martin. Now, all of a sudden, people coming out of the woodwork saying, this is asinine. And you know what's funny? And God, have I said this for so many years, that the left, for some strange reason, has this fascination with lobbying for things that are counterintuitive to their own best interest. And they have been doing it for decades. And I cannot, for the life of me, get my head around this. It is the absolute darndest thing. So now you've got all of the tolerance and love and all of the acceptance, but yet you've got Harvey Weinstein, and now we've got these tweets. Oh, yeah, and then, the Heisman Trophy winner, apparently he's a homophobe and has made some homophobic statements in the past. And then we got this, the baby is cold outside. And everybody on the left in particular seems to be all up in arms and pissed off about it. And then they're the ones that create the very problem they're pissed off about. It floors me. It absolutely, positively floors me. And people just cannot seem to understand this. And Democrats are just, I don't know, they're just an odd breed in that regard. And I know some years ago, our buddy Ann Coulter, wrote a book that liberalism is a mental disorder, and it is true that they definitely process information differently, so much so they can find offense, racism, and bigotry in almost every single thing in the world. This particular family's been doing this for the longest period of time, and the family parody version of Baby Just Go Outside emphasizes consent after the music video has about 32 million views as of this morning since the 1940s. Yep, the song has come under fire in the last few years for its lyrics and non-consensual implications. Multiple radio stations have banned the song from their holiday playlist, according to the HuffPo. But, 1940. That's like a few decades ago, and that's a mighty long time because that's what we do. So for those of you that up to this point are woefully offended by Baby It's Cold Outside, let us, we'll give you an option here as the Holderness family has come to the rescue once again with, their rendition of Baby It's Cold Outside. They've just got it to Baby Just Go Outside.
I really can't say.
Okay, you're free to go.
I've got to go away.
Understood, no means no.
This evening has been
Super appropriate.
so very nice.
But I do understand
My heart
consent.
will start to worry.
Definitely text her right
And
now.
I will be pacing the floor.
Here's the code and there is the
So really I'd
door.
better scurry.
I am gonna stand over
Well, maybe
here.
just a half a drink
You
more.
are in control of this
The neighbors might
thing.
think.
Invite them over if you like.
Say, what's in this drink?
Nothing but Sprite.
I wish I knew how
Just walk right out
to
the door.
break the spell.
I do know how to spell harassment.
No,
I
sir.
hear you loud and
At least I'm
clear.
gonna say that I tried.
I'm trying super
I really
hard.
can't
Please
say.
just go out, baby.
but
Just
it's
go
cold
outside.
I simply must go.
Uber is right outside.
The answer is no.
Seriously, right outside.
The welcome has been
I'll walk you to
so
the
nice
curb,
and warm.
but totally
Without
consensual.
we talk tomorrow.
Hopefully not about
At least
us.
there will be plenty
Please
implied.
do not imply anything.
I really can't say.
Baby, just go out. Baby,
Baby,
just
just
go. Baby, just go outside.
And then there's that. So apparently we have got the offensive police. They are out there making absolutely certain that the majority of you don't get your feelings hurt. So we've got other offenses that we'll be talking about. But also the Russian government has been very quiet on how long, too, nuclear-capable strategic bombers are going to stay in Venezuela, as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo decried the collaboration between the, two corrupt governments. Defense Secretary Ministry on Monday announced that a pair of Tu-160 bombers landed at an airport outside of Caracas. The ministry didn't reveal whether the bombers, which flew about 6,000 miles to reach the country, carried any weapons. An AN-124 heavy military transport plane and a 62 long-haul plane also arrived in Venezuela. Now, the Tu-160 bombers were deployed in Russia's campaign in Syria, where they employed conventionally armed Kh-101 cruise missiles, but the bombers are also capable of carrying nuclear-tipped cruise missiles with a range of about 3,400 miles. And for those of you doing your math, you might realize that's close enough. So could we be seeing yet another repeat of the missiles of October? Well, the Russians have in the past come with very friendly relationships to governments that have an antithetical relationship with the United States for the purpose of deploying their military accoutrements in those countries. It's what created the dust-up between Kennedy and Khrushchev back in the 60s, so we'll keep an eye on that. But the Russians are definitely demonstrating a willingness to, poke the bear, so to speak. And as typically is the case, Bill and Hillary Clinton just don't realize that the overwhelming majority of people in the world simply want them to go away. It is anticipated that the tour will be entirely scuttled, but tickets for at least 9 of the events, An Evening with the Clintons, have appeared on Groupon, which, as you're well aware, offers discounted deals on activities, goods, and services. Yesterday, discounted tickets were being offered in a number of what are being referred to as Democratic-friendly locations, including New York, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Boston. Among the deals, tickets to the talk, the April 11 talk at the Beacon Theater in New York, normally priced at $287, are going for $145. Tickets on the April 12th Detroit talk, originally listed for $220 plus, are going for $95. And tickets in Philadelphia for an April 12th talk have been reduced from $208 to $85. One of the things that kind of strikes me here is funny is the fact that we get an almost daily dose of Hillary Clinton. And why anybody, and particularly them, would think that someone is going to shell out $287 to hear them spew the same tripe that they do almost daily for free via TV and the internet. There is a level of narcissism at play here that is absolutely stunning to me. And even more importantly, who are these people that pay this kind of money to listen to a couple of old political has-beens go out into the world and just moan and bellyache about what is wrong with life? These must be, I'll tell y'all something straight up. A lot of y'all don't know this about me, but I'm not a big fan of horror films. I'm a comedy guy. Things like, Animal House, for example, or Back to School, or really almost any movie with Rodney Dangerfield in it. I'm also somewhat of an Adam Sandler fan. I even like Vince Vaughn. But the point is that, I'm not a big horror flick kind of guy. I don't want to watch Freddy Krueger. I don't want to watch, people get their limbs chopped off with a chainsaw. I mean, it's tough enough just for me to watch Scarface because I do like a good dust 'em up in terms of a good crime movie every once in a while. So I love The Godfather so much. But just the blatant violence for the gratuitous violence for violence sake, I don't jihad with. I'm starting to wonder if the people that would attend these type of events with the Clintons are the Freddy Kruegers of the world. They really want to see the kids get all chopped up. They really want to see Jamie Lee Curtis taken down. Oh, I'm sorry, that was offensive and racist and misogynistic. But who are the people that go to these things? And why do you insist upon spending this kind of money to hear somebody talk about how great and wonderful they are, while simultaneously lying to you on many different fronts? Their entire marriage, their entire relationship is a sham. And now you've got all these publicity photos out there. Looks like, Stevie Nicks and and Lindsey Buckingham in the olden days. The good olden days. Apparently, though, the Groupon's working. Tickets to a May 4th appearance in California that were normally priced at $77 sold out Monday for $35. Mm-hmm. It's about what a decent bottle of bourbon costs. Not that I would know personally. The Texas stop has a postponement for the funeral of President Bush, and that was after the premiere performance in Toronto last week, which drew very critical coverage over its sparse attendance, as well as comparisons with the old sold-out book tour, former First Lady Michelle Obama. Now, people are coming out to see Shelley. Hillary Clinton tweeted December 3rd that Bill and I will be traveling to Washington to pay our respects to President Bush and his family at the funeral this week. Yeah, they were so respectful. Bill fell asleep, and Hillary was rolling her eyes and yawning. Yeah, we saw it. We were greatly looking forward to being in Houston for our event, and we're excited to come back next year as soon as we find a date for Bill. All right, sorry I threw that last part in. The ticket prices for the event seem to reflect slumping. You think slumping interest in the Clinton tour. The Houston area event, originally slated for December 4th, tickets on the venue website were going for up to $399. But a search on sites like StubHub showed tickets going for as low as $7. Because nobody wants to listen to these people's tripe any longer. And hopefully people are beginning to understand that they have been, for all intent and purposes, lied to. And it's one of the reasons that I do this program, because I don't look at it as a radio program. I look at it, or even a podcast for that matter, I look at it hopefully as some form of a classroom where we can write the inaccuracies that are out there, and hopefully enough people will glom onto them. You know, if the book hasn't proven enough times that a lot of what you think you know is wrong, then there's just no other way for me to express that or to speak to it. Because the media has been doing that in this country for many, many, many years. And I get these really weird narratives all the time that I don't understand. And that's because there are too many people out there that fall for this kind of crap, that are willing to spend good money to have people shore up their belief systems. And that's really and truly all this is. We develop a belief system, and then we search for ways to have it validated. And that's all that they're doing. Trump is bad. Democrats good. Health care for all. Should have voted for us. Bill's not a philanderer. You know, and so and that's what we're going to pay money for. And so that's one of the reasons that, you know, we ask you to like the program and share the program. And if you listen to us online, share the program and check us out on Spotify and iTunes and tweet it maybe. Just tell people about what you're hearing on the program, because it's important that people understand this stuff. A couple of days ago, last Thursday actually, I'm doing the TV program Outspoken, and we're talking about civil rights and things related to the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement and protests and things of that nature. And somebody called in and made the comment to me, or wanted me to elaborate. His defense was something called the Compromise of 1877. And he got all, you know, the hair all up on the back of his neck. What about the Compromise of 1877? And I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with any of this? And it's things like that where people think that they're armed with the truth and reality. And it's really kind of interesting to kind of shore up my viewpoint here. This is going all the way back to the presidential election of 1876. and there was a Democrat by the name of Samuel Tilden who was running up against Rutherford Hayes. Now, we're coming off the administration of Ulysses S. Grant. We are pretty much right at towards the end of the Reconstruction era. Civil War obviously had ended. And there was a very close race between Rutherford Hayes and this Tilden guy. They really couldn't figure out who the winner was going to be. So in 1877, and it was very informal, but the parties came to an informal agreement, which came to be known as the Compromise of 1877. At this particular time, during the closing years of Reconstruction, there were Union troops in places like South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana. Grant had pulled the Union troops out of Florida in the waning days of his administration. But there was an agreement that was made between the camp of Rutherford B. Hayes and Tilden, Samuel Tilden, that if Hayes was given the nod towards victory in the presidency, that he would pull the remaining Union troops out of Louisiana and South Carolina. Hayes agreed to do so. And so that ended Reconstruction the moment Hayes is inaugurated because the troops are removed. At this point in time, the Southern Democrats, sometimes referred to as Redeemers, automatically took control of all the southern states, the old Confederacy. Although the Jim Crow laws had already been in existence, they were definitely doubled down on at this point in time because essentially President Hayes removes any kind of federal protection of blacks in the Deep South. Led by Tilden and others, many black voters were disenfranchised. The enforcement of Jim Crow became very harsh at times. Bigotry and racism was wide open. So this caller is making the point to me that, what were my thoughts on the Compromise of 1877? Well, number one, the Union troops were not going to be occupying the South forever anyway. But I didn't understand the point he was making, because it was almost as though the Republican-led government was responsible for the disenfranchisement of blacks at that time, when in fact it was the Democrats that were left behind, the Democrat leadership. But in a larger sense, it raised the question for me, if it was the Democrats in the Deep South at that time that took advantage of the absence of Union troops to protect the voting places and the sometimes harsh treatment of blacks in the Deep South post-Reconstruction, why are so many blacks Democrats? I just go, I don't get it. And all through history, you've got example after example after example of Republican administrations being much friendlier to the needs of those in the African-American community, but yet the majority of them are Democrat. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. So the Compromise of 1877 by the Democrats gives us the disenfranchisement of black voters, and so naturally that means that if you're black, you should vote Democrat. Sorry. I am so sorry. That makes zero sense. Unless you're willing to pay upwards of $200 to go and hear Bill and Hillary Clinton spew their vitriolic nonsense that supports and cloaks some of these very policies that have been perpetrated on multiple minority groups throughout the history of this country. When we come back on the other side, Kevin Hart is apologetic. Should he be forgiven? Interesting, very interesting piece of audio that Kevin released just the other day. Kevin Hart, by the way, no relationship. And we'll get to that here on the other side. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show right here on the, the Heart of America Talk Radio Network.
I really can't say
say you're free to go.
I've got to go away.
Understood, no means no.
This evening has been
Super appropriate.
so very nice.
But I do understand
My mother
consent.
will start to worry.
Definitely text her right
And
now.
Father will be pacing the floor.
Here's the code and there is the
So really I'd
door.
better
I am
scurry.
gonna stand over
Well, maybe
here.
just a half a drink
You
more.
are in control of this
The neighbors might
thing.
think,
Invite them over if you like.
say, what's in this drink?
Nothing but Sprite.
I wish.
The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Is your home's crawl space making your family sick? Let Alabama Water Management inspect your crawl space today. A wet, moldy crawl space can cause serious foundation problems. They are breeding grounds for disgusting odors, polluted air, potentially harmful allergens, and volatile organic compounds that can actually make breathing difficult and the air in your home very unhealthy. Don't take chances with your family's health. If your home has a crawl space, call Alabama Water Management today for a no-cost, no-obligation crawl space inspection.
It's the Michael Hart Show.
Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. Remember, tomorrow's broadcast is going to be on The Unknown America, and then Friday we'll do more of the Situational Security Program. These are both permanent additions to the Heart of America lineup of broadcast, and the reason we're doing that is we think that both of those things are important. The history of this country matters. We demonstrated that in what we were just talking about a moment ago in the Compromise of 1877, because there's too many people out there that are armed with enough knowledge that they think they actually know something that is salient to the conversation. And although it's a very interesting time in American history and raises many, many, many questions for the relationships between the Democrats and the Republicans, blacks, white, blue, green, and gray, it also, just pretty much demonstrates there's a lot of folks that think that they have got a good bead on thing, and historically speaking, without having all of the facts, it's very difficult to talk about the problems and the solutions that are facing us in the current time. Because of that, I think we're going all Eleanor Roosevelt, who was it that said, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas. Well, we've got small minds abounding talking about people. People who need people. They're the lucky, never mind. Now Kevin Hart's in trouble. Following his announcement that he was bowing out as the host of the 2019 Academy Awards, this was yesterday, suggested that organizers behind the annual event are considering airing next year's telecast without a host. Yesterday, game show host Pat Sajak even weighed in on this story. Said that basically the Academy Awards needs to be expanded to 2 days. Day number one, you, give out awards and acknowledge the accomplishments of everyone who made an achievement that year. And day number two, you have a political rally. Of course, he's being tongue-in-cheek and satirical, but the point is still made. Because every time you've got people that are, again, going back to we talked about the Clinton story and the compromise story, you've got people that are stepping out onto these national stages the case of the Academy Award, international, and making complete political fools of themselves for not knowing what they're talking about, not knowing the history. And that has created an environment where the numbers have gone down, but it's also created an environment where everything is now being torn apart, speculated upon. So much so that now every single host of one of these types of broadcasts is going to be vetted, probably more so than a presidential candidate. It's very interesting, the comments that Hart made from so many years ago are now being blamed, not only for his walking away, but the show in the future may go sans a host, according to some insiders, and instead would feature a bunch of huge celebs, bigly celebs. Listen to this. Something SNL style. You go all SNL Academy Awards, you will be gone in 3 years, if that. Hart announced last week that he was stepping down from hosting the award show amid criticism over year-old tweets deemed anti-gay. He makes an interesting video explanation. Going to play it for you here in just a second, the audio. And makes it's very brief in comparison, but almost a Brett Kavanaugh-esque defense. You know, folks, I am not the same person that I was, frankly, even 5 years ago. I don't mean that in a cultural context, but perhaps behavioral. In my late teens and early 20s, there was hardly a drug on the street I didn't try once. A few of them several times. I was a hard drinking, drag racing, dope smoking, bar fighting, incarcerated redneck. Could barely string 2 sentences together. Dropped out of high school. Yeah, I went off to college for a few years. I say a few years. I hung out there for a few years. I actually probably had about two quarters of credits behind me. Really, frankly, got mixed up with a great bunch of guys, but, you know, I was the stupid one of the bunch. People that I still stay in touch with to this day. But I'm not that person. When I first went into radio, and it's actually been about 17 years ago. A lot of folks don't realize I've been doing this for many years. But when I first went into radio in the political sense, I had to make a decision. Because a lot of people in talk radio, and a few on TV, but mostly talk radio, do not use their real name. I know what many of their real names are, and I'm not going to reveal it just out of sheer respect. But they don't even use their real name. I had no choice because I am from here, Birmingham, where my talk radio program was on a terrestrial stick. I had no choice because I wasn't going to change my name to protect my identity and then go out in public and have people realize that I was that guy from back in the day. On top of that, I believe my past validates my presence. If I have been and I have reborn in the Lord, I am a byproduct. I am an example of what he can do with just the lowest of the low. And I think that that's allowed me to be a better father, a better radio host, a better spouse, I bet a lot of things. So now we live in a world where apparently nobody is afforded the luxury of forgiveness. Hart's, made some interesting comments over the years. That Hart, not this one. He said, I made the choice to step down from hosting this year's Oscars. This is because I do not want to be a distraction on a night that should be celebrated by so many amazing, talented artists. I sincerely apologize to the LGBTQ community for my insensitive words from my past. Interestingly enough, the TV program that I was on the other day, The Legacy of George Wallace, also came up. The man that ran on the segregationist ticket in 1972 was not the man that was buried some years later. People grow up, they mature, they change opinions. I've never really had an opinion one way or the other about the gay community. I'm one of those kind of people, I'm a fiscal conservative and a center-right moderate on cultural issues. I don't care if you marry your mailbox. You gotta reconcile that in your own mind and with your Lord, even if you know him or not. So I don't harbor any of these animosities in terms of the black community or the gay community. But apparently at one point in time, Hart did. But he grew up and got over it. Now he's made some comments against the president. I don't know that those were racist. They certainly weren't gay bashing. But at what point in time? I mean, is there an imaginary line of demarcation in our lives, or is it a moving target, or is it just a target of convenience predicated on what somebody's trying to accomplish in their world? Because I'll tell you straight up, I have been approached before about the possibility of running for elected office, and I have turned it down because I have used the argument that I don't think I could withstand the scrutiny of my past, despite the fact that I've admitted it so many times. But Hart makes a very interesting comment. In one tweet, I have made the choice to step down from hosting this year's Oscars. This is because I do not want to be a distraction on a night that should be celebrated. He then followed up, I'm sorry that I hurt people. I'm evolving and want to continue to do so. My goal is to bring people together, not to tear us apart. Much love and appreciation to the Academy. I hope we can meet again. And then he went as far as releasing an audio that's traveled pretty much around the internet, including on Instagram. And this is Kevin Hart basically explaining himself and the fact that he wasn't always the person he is today. But then again, can't we all say the same?
I'm almost 40 years old. If you don't believe that people change, grow, evolve as they get older, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to hold people in a position where they always have to justify or explain their past, then do you. I'm the wrong guy, man.
Indeed. So what do we do with that? I know a lot of folks out there whose past would not bear scrutiny. I know a lot of folks out there, probably including my own, whose present wouldn't bear scrutiny. Christians face temptation every day. Our churches are full of alcoholism and pornography. I've heard it said as many as 1 in 7 men in the church struggle with addictions to pornography. I'm not here to lecture on that. But the point is, we are a fallen world. So, they excoriated Brett Kavanaugh. And there's a lot of people on the right. And I know they're out there right now screaming at their computers or their devices or wherever they're listening to this program about, well, turnabout's fair play. We ought to go after Kevin Hart went after the president. They excoriated Brett Kavanaugh for things he did, so that doesn't matter. I hate to be so imbecilistic as to say that, it's, malapropping again. Got it. I don't want to be so infantile as to say that two wrongs don't make a right, but it is something along those lines. Because whether we are giving Kevin Hart grief about homophobic tweets or the Heisman Trophy winner, or we are shaming this girl for actually wanting to get back in shape, this Instagram influencer, this YouTuber. Oh, how dare she lose 50 weights and look good. We are such an amazing materialistic society, and in recent years, I think it's gotten considerably worse. Not our desire for boats, houses, cars. It's turned into some kind of societal or cultural materialism. And it seems to be in vogue to destroy, to tear your enemy apart at all costs. We're no closer to solutions on abortion or gun control or immigration or taxation or political ads. We are no closer at all to any of those things because we're too ignorant to have the right conversation. Tony Robbins used to always say, the quality of your life comes down to the quality of questions you ask yourselves. If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. And if you got the wrong answer, well, what in the world does that help? And is absolutely right. And then, to shore up our weak-kneed and feckless views of the world, we turn to Bill and Hillary Clinton and their asinine, look at me, I've got a healthy dose of narcissism tour. And for $300, you can sit here for 90 minutes and listen to me bitch at you as to why you were stupid for not voting for me. Yeah. And at the same time, we can excoriate a comedian that I happen to think is hilarious. You see, I'm not one of those kind of guys that gets offended by the Martin Lawrence, Chris Rock type of racism humor. I'm a big boy. You can call me anything you want to call me. You can wear me out on social media. Because I know that the overwhelming majority of people in this country are just that ignorant. So why do I care what they think about me? But again, whether or not you are tearing Kevin Hart a new one, or you are going to listen to Bill, do you see, can you see that these two things, Bill and Hillary attendance and ripping up, actually these three things, and tearing up Kevin Hart and wearing out this song, do you see that they're all responses to the same beliefs? Because they are. Over here, we're offended by this, we're offended by the song, we're offended by Hart, and then over here, we're going to go pay very good money to validate why we should be pissed off. Because you can't do it intellectually, because you got no right to be pissed off. At least not in terms of Kevin Hart's tweeting past. So that leaves us in the future, at least for the next year or two, without a host of the Academy Awards, because yet again, almost without fail, so unbelievably predictable, the Democrat liberal-leaning left has broken the Academy Awards. They broke the NFL. They broke much of rock music. They have broken America. They've broken fun. They've broken songs. Damn, y'all must be one more pissed off bunch of people. But there's hope. Representative Dan Flynn, he wants to make sure that any Texas teacher that wants to display the Ten Commandments in his or her classroom may do so. Now, for those of you that live in the state of Alabama, this is very similar to what got voted on back in November. The Ten Commandments is, I'm not going to say it's making a comeback, but it certainly is putting a lot of pressure on people in respective state houses. This is the actual bill, HB 307, that I have in my possession, relating to the posting of the Ten Commandments in public school classrooms, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Texas. Section 1, subchapter D, Chapter 11, Education Code, is amended by adding sections, who cares? Section 11172, posting of the Ten Commandments. The Board of Trustees of an independent school district may not prohibit the posting of a copy of the Ten Commandments in a prominent location in a district classroom. Section 2, this act applies beginning with the 2019-2020 school year. Section 3, this act takes effect immediately if it receives a vote of 2/3 of all the members elected to each house, as provided by Section 39, Article 3 of the Texas Constitution. If this act does not receive the vote necessary for immediate effect, this act takes effect September 1, 2019. Gotta love that. Okay. If it gets 2/3 of the vote, it passes. If it doesn't get 2/3 of the vote, it still passes just later on. Don't you love politics? Don't you love politicians? They're such a fun bunch because they're so full of crap. But, no, I love the act itself. It's just the way it's going to get passed into law that I find a little on the curious side. But again, HB 307 says that school officials, particularly school board trustees, cannot prevent copies of the commandments from being posted in a prominent location in classrooms. Flynn went on to say if a teacher wants to put it up in her classroom, she should be able to do so just as if she wanted to put up Halloween, Thanksgiving, or any other decorations. This is, according to several Texas lawmakers, likely going to spark legal battles. The thing is, and just like in Alabama, you're not going to have an immediate posting of the commandments. What this essentially says is that the commandments can, in fact, be posted if they fall within the constitutionality of posting them. A professor of law and religion at George Washington that said, his name is Bob Tuttle, said it's unconstitutional. The government is limited in its ability to display religious messages. What's interesting about that observation is, first off, the majority of federal buildings in D.C., within the marble of the buildings themselves, have numerous nods to biblical times engraved right in them. But what else is interesting here? It's unconstitutional. The government is limited in its ability to display religious messages. He said, you couldn't have a banner hanging across the entrance of City Hall that says Jesus saves. That would be the government invoking religion. And that is what's going on here with the Ten Commandments. School children are subject to being a captive audience for particular government messages. What's interesting about that comment from Tuttle is that the limitations on government to display religious messages is limited to the federal government under the auspices of the United States Constitution. school districts are state-run entities. Now, if such a state had a clear provision that they would not mandate a religion, then that would be different. But states simply don't do that. A lot of people don't realize that back during the colonial days, before the United States, many of the colonies did, in fact, have official religions. And that the colonies were actually established along religious lines. Catholics were in Maryland. Baptists were in Georgia. A lot of the colonies required tithing. It's even in the book. It's called a chapter called Mandatory Tithing. Part of the reason for this was at this point in time, pastors were paid by the state. There was even a law case, a legal case that I won't get into today called the Parsons Clause. And it was originally the Parsons case where the amount of money paid to individual pastors was predicated on the wheat and tobacco harvest because the state was so involved, or in this case, the colonies so involved. When the colonies started to ratify the Constitution, they pretty much abandoned the idea of a state-mandated religion. They followed suit with the Constitution. So in the case of this Tuttle guy saying that it's unconstitutional, if in fact Texas has state-run schools, then it would seem to me that he would be incorrect about that. And again, people applying, and I can understand his justification, because I guess you could go all supremacy clause on us and say that the United States government, pardon the expression, trumps the state's governments. And now we're back to the state right argument. Tuttle, the professor, says that the fact that Flynn's bill makes displaying the Ten Commandments optional and not required is not important. But then he goes back to talking about forced invoking of an ideology. How is it forced if it's optional? See, these are the things that really make my mind just explode with curiosity. Let's get out to the phones and see what you guys think. 929-477-3761, and we'll bring Murph in here. Hey, Murph, how are you?
Hey, Michael, I'm doing all right. It's just, and you know, you and I have had this discussion before. But, you know, and of course, you know about this, the Aiken Study Bible commissioned by the Continental Congress in 1781 that was printed, published, and distributed by the U.S. federal government, a Christian Bible for the education of the citizens of America. So, you know, this whole idea that there's this grand separation of church and state obviously is not accurate. Even in its ideal is not properly interpreted, I would say. But you know, when you start to remove God from stuff, you create a vacuum. When you take God out of schools, you create a vacuum. And when you take God out of the government, you create this vacuum. And what's going to fill that vacuum, unfortunately, is undesirable things. And in this case, at this stage of the game, you know, here currently in 2018, the government doesn't want competition to brainwash your children, and I use that lightly there, but they don't want competition for ideas in teaching children that government's the way to do things. Instead of saying, hey, maybe there's this other way called, Christianity you might try, or even just be aware of. Government's your God. Government needs to be prominent and needs to be what's forced and what's taught. And we can't allow any other competing, ideas, so to speak. But, that's what I see when they start talking about the illegalities, so to speak, which that's not even accurate when it's mostly bad precedent rulings by activist judges.
Well, one of the things that also kind of perplexes me, Murph, is that the Ten Commandments, they're not a Christian document. We're going back to Moses' time. Christ had not even been born yet. These are the basic tenets. Thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not kill, honor thy mother and father. We all pretty much know them. What is threatening within the Ten Commandments about those tenets of behavior? See, that's what's so funny to me. It's almost like, I'll get to these little fun little dust ups with TC from time to time because I'm the cook in the house, and I'll get some chicken out, and I'll let the chicken thaw, and I'll put the chicken like on a paper towel. Well, she wants me to wrap it in aluminum foil, put it in a paper towel, put it in a plastic bag, as though salmonella is going to jump off of the thawing bird, And I look at it and go, honey, the chicken couldn't fly when it was alive. The salmonella is not going to fly off the bird. But I typically comply with her wishes. In a similar sense, it's almost like people see the Constitution on a wall, and they are threatened by the fact that if you walk by it, somehow this Christian viewpoint is going to jump you. And I'm so amused by that because so many of the things in the Ten Commandments, they are the way that we would want to believe anyway. Not coveting your neighbor's wife, honoring your mom and dad, don't kill, don't lie, don't cheat. And so, again, I don't understand the fascination from a legal perspective with the document because I see it as remarkably unthreatening, particularly when you use the argument that we are not going to espouse Christian views on young people when it's not even a Christian document.
Well, Judeo-Christian, just strictly Jewish, I don't think it's necessarily the bigger issue because, it's like when my wife was briefly a lunchroom attendant person, and this little elementary school outside of Tuscaloosa, and this lawyer for Tuscaloosa comes down. He's this Jewish guy and has his kids, and he enrolls them in the school. And he immediately goes to the school's office, goes to the principal and says, if you display Merry Christmas anywhere in this school and my children see it, I will sue you for everything you have. And the guy, the guy's Jewish. And obviously, Christmas and all that sort of thing is not for Jews, so to speak. But the fact that he would just threaten to sue over his children seeing the word Merry Christmas or some teacher or lunchroom attendant saying Merry Christmas to them, this fear that their minds would be filled with an idea other than what he wanted to put in there. And it's fear, honestly. It's fear of people thinking differently than the way you want them to think. So
No, that point is valid. That's one of the reasons why you have this Clinton tour. They fear that people out there, their legacy, they're trying to, maintain a legacy because they're fearful that people might start thinking differently because you are beginning to see a lot of folks, particularly on the left, beginning to wake up to the realities of the world around them. And I think you're spot on with that, Murph, that there's a lot of fear out there. I hate to steal Alex Jones's line, but there is a war on for your mind. And unfortunately, You know, we're so dumbed down in this country, it's not impossible to win that war, but you are absolutely spot on that fear is the name of the game here.
Well, that war for your mind, Michael, it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. So.
Yes, sir, it does. Yes, sir, it does. Murph, good call. Thank you for making it.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, got to take a real quick one, and we're going to come back on the other side. We'll continue the conversation. You're listening to the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. Stick around. We're coming right back in 3.
I really can't say.
Okay, you're free to go.
I've got to go away.
Understood, no means no.
This evening has been
Super appropriate.
so very nice.
But I do understand
My heart
consent.
will start to worry.
Definitely text her right
And I
now.
will be pacing the floor.
Here's the code and there is the
So really I'd
door.
better
I am gonna stand over
now maybe
here.
just a half a drink
You
more.
are in control of this
The neighbors might
thing.
think,
Invite them over if you like.
say, what's in this drink?
Nothing but Sprite.
I wish I knew how
Just walk right out
to
the door.
break the spell.
I do know how to spell harassment.
No.
The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land. If you're a fan of the Michael Hart Show and are enjoying the daily commentary, interviews, and audio shorts, then please consider supporting the program financially. Creating a daily talk program takes a great deal of time and money. Although corporate sponsors are always welcome, the real support comes from people like you, the regular listeners. So if you support the Christian conservative message and values we share on this program and would like to help, please go to our website, michaelhartshow.com, and click on the orange Patreon button at the top of the page. For less than $7 a month, you can help us keep going while we spread our faith-based conservative views worldwide. So if you support our views, please consider supporting the program. Just go to www.michaelhartshow.com and click on the orange Patreon button, and thanks for your support and for listening.
It's not right versus left. It's us versus them. It's the Michael Hart Show. Anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg going to end up, and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the page.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Hey, welcome back. 929-477-3761. We want to let you know that if you do go over to the website, heartofamerica.net and michaelhartshow.com, they both take you basically to the same information. But if you're listening at heartofamerica.net, if you'll help us out, and because we want to grow this thing and spread the Christian conservative constitutional truth about this country, which is why we do Unknown America on Wednesdays. Not just things that are in the book, but things you might not know about the history of this country. And tomorrow we're going to be doing a lot about, well, race in this country, a lot of things that people have quite wrong about the history of the black community in America. And a lot of it's actually very, very pro black. I've always felt it's kind of weird that the black community, for as austere as their numbers are in terms of the size of the population, have made stunning contributions to this nation. But by extension, there's also a lot of falsehoods in the narrative and things like the misunderstanding of the Compromise of 1877 example that we had talked about. But what we're trying to do here is spread the Christian conservative, truthful constitutional views of this country and educate people so that we can get America back on track. If you support our efforts, then we would greatly appreciate your support, because it does take money to run a political campaign. It takes money to run this program. So go over to heartofamerica.net, click on the orange Patreon button. Yeah, you have to sign up. If you don't want to do it there, you can go and just make a contribution to the program if you're compelled through PayPal, one time or even monthly. But if you sign up for the $6.95 a month Patreon subscription level on the program, help keep us going. We'll even be so grateful. We'll even send you out a copy, an autographed copy of Unknown America with no shipping, and we'll send you out a copy of the Constitution with it as well. And as a matter of fact, even at you can contribute as little as $1 a month. Every little bit helps, but that's just a way to keep us on the air. So we're all in this together, folks. And it takes time, it takes energy, it takes money. No, it doesn't always seem like there's a lot to this program, but there really is a lot more going into it than a lot of folks might realize. So help us keep it going. Help us get America squared back away as we continue to keep America great as it always was. And so if you can support us, we'll send you out a free copy of the book. And heck, give it away for Christmas, What's a cheap Christmas gift? Wow, that's amazing. And also the book is still, of course, up at theunknownamerica.com. So if you can help us out, we'd appreciate it. All right, so we got Trump meeting with Democrats also, having conversations on the border wall and a possible governmental shutdown. President Trump announced earlier today that he will meet with Democrat leaders to hash out a plan to avert a partial government shutdown later this month, despite sharp disagreements over the border wall. Trump will sit down with Nancy Pelosi and Chucky at the White House today, ahead of a December 21 deadline to shut down a range of government agencies. Oh, Nancy tweeted yesterday, our country cannot afford, now it's a Trump shutdown. Our country cannot afford a Trump shutdown. Are y'all not getting tired of this? Are y'all not getting tired of the same old trash-talking BS from the same old wrinkled fart has-been politicians in this country? Whether it be her or Schumer or Maxine. I mean, it's I'm over it. And there's a few on the right as well. Mitch, take it to the House. We need some fresh blood out there. Of course, we got to get folks educated first, which is why we're doing this program, before we send people off to, because the last thing we need is, a whole stable of Alexandria Cortezes, eh? You know what I mean? So anyway, I don't understand why everything has to be Trump this and Trump that. The most contentious issue is the border wall, and Trump has requested the next funding package that would include at least $5 billion to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Of course, it's an idea that Democrats have flatly rejected. And again, for the love and for the life, I do not understand the unwillingness to protect the sovereignty of this nation. Pelosi and Schumer have urged President Trump to support a bill that includes a half dozen government funding bills largely agreed upon by lawmakers, along with a separate measure that funds the Department of Homeland Security at current levels through September 30th. Now, the Democrats will likely push for a CR, or continuing resolution, that funds the remaining appropriation bills if Trump doesn't agree to that, an aide to the Associated Press has stated. Trump said also Friday that Congress should provide all the money he wants for the wall and called illegal immigration a threat to the well-being of every American community. At an appearance in Kansas City, the president accused Democrats of playing a political game and said it was one he ultimately would win. Politics and politicians play political games. That's just the way it rolls. And that is why, for the better part of the last 10 years, I have tried to really drive the point that
it's not right versus left. It's us versus them.
Yes, it is. But first, without any further ado, we've got to have foot soldiers out there that understand the way the game is played and can recognize it for what it is when it slaps them upside the head. Because let me kind of go back. Let me circle back to a storyline that we got into earlier today. Despite the fact that the Clinton machinery has put their tour on Groupon, and for whatever the reason, feels this compulsion to line their pockets even further, in this situation, you've got them out doing what amounts to political seminars. That's extraordinarily dangerous. It's the Clintons on tour. And for those of you that are older, have you ever recollected a time where former politicians, or I guess they're still politicians, but former elected officials have gone on a sweeping nationwide tour? I realize the arrogance and the narcissism of expecting us to pay the ticket. But it concerns me to no end that in a privatized environment such as this, that being a seminar, they are basically free to say whatever they want to say. And this is why we continue to get what we are getting. Same thing happens with Michelle Obama. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a legal right to do it. But there has to be a counterbalance to it out there, folks. There has got to be a method to fight back against this. Some years ago, it was called the Two Naked Heads Tour. It was Kevin Jackson, the Black Sphere out of Missouri, and Joe the Plumber. And they actually came to Alabama, and I've met these guys a couple of different times. Probably need to get Kevin back on the program, talking a bit about the protest here in Alabama. But it's interesting, they went on tour, and all they asked for was a love offering. And they got a few dollars contributed to them because they were traveling. They had gasoline in their cars. They had to eat, had to have a hotel room. And they had a book to sell as well, but they're still doing it on their own dime. And so at the end of each one of their meetings, they would ask basically to pass the hat, and folks came out because it was a free event. But we as Republicans, as conservatives, and maybe it's because of our conservative nature, I found it very interesting that Kevin and Joe were on this tour and struggled financially. While they're out, discussing Republican, Christian, conservative viewpoints, while simultaneously, until very recently, the Clintons and Michelle Obama, despite the fact the Clintons' numbers have fallen off, that there was a period of time when that was a good ticket get. But then again, Shelley, Barack Obama, that's the reason the Clinton ticket sales are falling off, is because there's competition for ears and eyes out there. But isn't it interesting how the Democrats will, financially speaking, support these messages? And you don't see nearly as much of this on the conservative or Republican side. And I wonder why that is. I wonder what the case of that is. Because I'm starting to fear that there are too many conservatives in the world that don't necessarily recognize the threat for what it is. Because these are indoctrination tours. Because I saw a recent interview with Michelle Obama. I've seen, obviously, Clinton, both of them interviewed numerous times, as well as the former president of the United States, still out there basically taking credit for everything because he's so butt sore. But people they're buying their tripe. And they are winning. They are winning. If there's a war on for your mind, they are winning that war at the moment. And I think that falls on us as Republicans. You know, you always hear times, well, you know, those Democrats, they fill these places up because they don't have a job. I have a job. Well, that's not an excuse. You got to make time. Whether you attend an event or you support a program or you go to a Tea Party event, we got to put our money where our mouth is. And I mean our money, and I'm using that in the most widespread example. Doesn't have to necessarily be dollars, although that helps. Because these are the kind of things that we're going to be battling against and struggling with. Because I want to offer up one last final thought as we wrap this puppy up today. Alexandria Cortez is about to be a United States Congresswoman. And I want you to look. I know you'll have some time later today when you're bored, you're not online shopping, you're not Amazoning, you're not Googling. Take a few moments and take a look at the roster of the United States House of Representatives. Then start to Google some of the quotes from some of these people. Folks, we have got, and I'm just going to say it, we have got some real certifiable nuts in the House of Representatives. And that's on us. Cynthia McKinney's no longer there. Sheila Jackson Lee is. Maxine Waters is. Frederica Wilson is. Al Green is. I'm talking some certifiable whack jobs who would sell this country out for a vote all day long. We as conservatives, we as Republicans, even those of us that might consider ourselves moderates, we absolutely, positively must support the messages, the programs like this put out, that Tea Party rallies put out, that voter and registration campaigns put out, because we are dangerously close to living in a country that's run by the Alexandria Cortezes of the world. In the last few years, we've got gay marriage as a national right. Again, personally, I don't sweat it that much. I think that's between those people and their Lord. But you think about the things that have occurred in this country that have happened in the last few years because of our unwillingness or inability to stand in unison, stand tall, stand tight, and fight back. We can pay it lip service all day long. But here we are facing another potential crisis, compliments of the political fighting in this country, while simultaneously worrying about what Kevin Hart tweeted so many years ago, and then one of the hottest debates of the entire season is whether or not this song, It's Cold Outside, is offensive to certain groups, despite the fact that this guy is absolutely positively flirting with this woman, and then later in the song, the woman does the exact same thing to another man. But that's the world we live in. the 11th day of December 2018. Do want to remind you, tomorrow is the Unknown America edition of the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Broadcasting Network. Also Friday, we will be doing situational security with a workplace security consultant. Felix Natter is going to be joining us. He'll be here to talk about ways that we can stay safe within our, not only our classrooms, but at work as well. And, of course, Thursday with Megan Barth. So y'all check it out. Go get a copy of the book, The Unknown America. Piss off a liberal with it. And also, if you're able to support this program, the Christian conservative message of the Michael Hart Show, go over to the heartofamerica.net page and just hit that Patreon button. And so it's $6 a month. You can cancel at any time, and I'll send you out a free copy of The Unknown America, just as my way of, well, showing you how much we appreciate the love and support. That's it for us. Unknown America tomorrow. You've been listening to the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. We're back with you tomorrow at 8.
No means no. Super appropriate, but I do understand consent. Definitely text her right now. Here's the code and there is the door. I am gonna stand over here. You are in control of this thing. Invite them over if you like.
Say, what's in this drink?
Nothing but Sprite.
I wish I knew how.
Just walk right out the door. I do know how to spell harassment.